So just a little series for the lower back. So I'm gonna have you start with, again, make sure you have a wall within fair distance of you. Soften through the knees and come to an upright position. So I'm upright, you can't see the top part of my body, but you will eventually, where the tailbone feels like it's sort of just hanging, as if you had weight off of it. And the key here is to get the sacral ligaments to release. So the lower belly is going to lift a little bit, right? And then just kind of lean back. And from here, so you just want to make sure the feet are right underneath you. And this is a really good exercise for working your way into sitting down on a chair and getting up. So we're building the strength of the legs, the power of the legs, and the ground of the feet. The feet are going to bring information from the ground up through the legs into this lower belly. So this is a series for the back. I'm going to have you start with, so we're hinging at the joints, right? So ankles, knees, hips. So breathing in, use the hands to support the heart coming forward, good, or out as the hips are going back. And the idea is to not hinge at that lower back, right? Or pull into the upper back. So we're trying to find that flexion through the hips, good, the knees and the ankles. So I'm taking the hips all the way back towards the wall. My hips aren't quite touching the wall yet. Start by taking the hands so you can wrap the fingers around the sides of the chair. You can just take the hands flat. I'm going to take the hands flat so you can see. And I'm going to shift the weight forward into my arms. I want my arms to be doing work. So I'm going to push down on the seat of the chair, grounding down through the front legs of the chair. And this is in order to really engage the arms. So I don't want to lock the elbows. You can tell because the shoulders will kind of pop, right? Or the arm will push through the rotator cuff. So I'm going to push down through the seat of the chair, the front legs of the chair to get the lift in the arms. Feet a good hip distance apart here. I'm taking the feet a little wider than hip distance apart. My toes are still pointing forward. My knees are moving in the direction of the toes. But what I want to do here, and I'm using the arms to stabilize the shoulders and the back, is start to shift the weight back into the heels until the knees stack right over the ankles. So this is where the hips are going to go back towards the wall, right? So you bend the knees, but flex the hips, take the hips all the way back to the wall. So the thing here is you're going to start to feel the legs working, and what tends to happen is this compression in the hips. So here's where you drive down through the heels as if you're trying to create an imprint in the wood, right, or your mat, and the lift in the belly. Then you're going to lift the front ribs, pull in through the front ribs. Good. Take a deep breath in. So here you might take the chair a little closer to you, and a couple of options. If you need more height and more, the work of the arms supports the work of the legs. So you can press into the hands, right? Press into the legs to get the lift in the abdomen. This is going to decompress the hips. You'll feel it. It stabilizes the sacrum. It tells the brain that the base of the spine is anchored and safe in the pelvis. The hands press down so you can get the rib cage to retract, so you're opening up the back body. So I'm going to come down lower. This is where you will eventually go. It's just more work in the legs, right? So again, I have to move my feet further forward so my knees stay right over my heels. And then press down through the inner heels to keep the outer thighs hugging in, engaging the inner thighs. This hugging in at the legs, so they stay parallel, helps the abdomen. So now I'm pushing the hips into the wall, pushing the hands down into the seat of the chair to get the retraction of the rib cage. And you breathe. Take another deep breath in. My legs are doing a ton of work. Exhale. You may find, so this is just, eventually over time, you're going to come a little further, taking the elbows to the seat of the chair, the forearms, and pressing down through the forearms again to support the shoulders, to get that lift in the ribs. Breathing in. My legs are really working here. Like there's fire burning in the thighs and the hamstrings. If you're not pushing the heels into the floor, you're going to feel it all in the quads. So I want to activate the hamstrings, pressing down through the heels, getting that lift in the belly, pressing down through the forearms or the hands, getting that lift in that retraction of the front ribs to open up the back. One more breath. The gaze extends out so you're not pulling on the neck, right? So wherever you are, the gaze extends out. And then from here, take your elbows to thighs. Woo! Don't sink. Don't sink. You have to transition. Walk the hands in. And then I'm just going to drive down through the heels to get a little bit more extension through the legs before I straighten the legs all the way. So you can straighten the legs here to release the work of the legs. Lean back into the wall. And then very gently slide down. So again, you might find that you're here with the knees not quite bent at 90 degrees, so thighs not quite parallel to the floor. But eventually you're going to take the hips down till you're 90 degrees. And we're just going to do 3 breaths. Exhale, push down through the heels, pull into the belly. Rib cage softens back. I'm just going to take the arms out so you can see. I'm keeping the back body pressing into the wall by rooting down through the heels. A lot of power in the legs. Exhale, lower belly, rib cage to spine. Stay there and breathe. So I'm keep holding the power of the legs, the action of the legs. Outer thighs hugging in, heels rooting down. 2 more. Brain is drifting back, so the back of the head is resting on the wall. And 1 more. Inhale, use the hands to press the hips away from the wall. Good, nice and slowly. I'm coming up onto my fingers just enough so I can shift my center of gravity from back to forward. Hands to the seat of the chair. And we're going to take downward facing dog, and then I'm going to repeat that sequence 1 more time, so you can actually just skip to the sequence if you want to gloss over the first part of what we did. So you step the feet back so they're a little bit behind the hips. If your hamstrings are tight, you just bring the heels up the wall a little bit. Otherwise, the heels may not be all the way down the floor. Toes pointing forward. Now I've brought the feet in a little closer to one another, right? So they're about this far apart. Thighs roll in towards each other. Press down on the front legs of the chair, the seat of the chair. Watch that lower back. And again, I'm going to press through the hands and pull up on the elbows and start to send the hips back again. But this time, so again, the weight's more in the ball of the foot. The heels are stretching down and the knees and the thighs are going to lift. Here's the key. Belly, rib cage pulling up into the body to find that traction. And then you can just take the head and invite the head to fall, if that's appropriate, right? It may not be appropriate. Just notice if that's pulling on your neck or your back. And the breath is moving into that back body. So again, I'm not sinking when I exhale. I reassert the action on the exhale. So the outer thighs hug in. So the ball of the foot is pushing down, but the heel is kind of stretching down to get the uplift in the thighs and the belly and the ribs. Arms extending. 1 more deep breath and just really breathe into that back body. And then you can lift the heels. And again, I'm going to bend the knees. Don't let the back go here. Good. So again, you may find that you need to I can lower the knees to the floor together, but you may want to step 1 foot forward. Lower that back knee to the floor super slowly so you have knee support. Forearms come to the chair. Take your weight a little forward. Maybe even use the hand to slide the foot back. And then we take child's pose. So the feet come together behind you. The heels pull in towards each other just so you're not twisting the ankle, right? And then lower the hips back towards the heels. So if you need to, you will put some height underneath, behind the knees or across the Achilles so the hips have something to rest on. And then I'm just taking the forearms to the seat of the chair, stacking the hands and resting the forehead on the top hand. And again, watch out for the back. It's really easy for the back to sink. Navel, rib cage. So just kind of let the elbows fall off. I've got a little bit of traction in the back. And there's also widening in the back. So this is nice because it keeps the head above the level of the heart. It protects the neck. So we're actually letting the neck sort of fall into its natural curvature, extension. And we're engaging the abdomen a little bit and softening through the hips to your degree. Take a deep breath in. Full breath out. Inhale, come back up to your forearms. So we're going to transition back to downward facing dog. So again, you might take the hands to the seat of the chair. So I want to support the shoulders, Tailbone compressed forward just a little bit, navel ribcage drifting back. So here, tuck the toes. It's a little easier to lift from this position, although so as not to compromise the back. Take your forearms to the seat of the chair. Watch the shoulders. The arms have to really press down. The belly has to really lift up. And then you drive down through the legs to get the sacrum to lift. Otherwise, you come back up into this the way you went, you came down. In other words, you take 1 foot forward. So, let's try the other side. 1 foot forward, shift the weight forward. So you can rock a little bit, drive down through the standing leg, push with the back leg, and bring the foot in, using the hands to come to an upright position. Take the feet back. So remember, we're keeping the feet forward of the hips here because the hips are going to go back and we want the knees to be over the ankles. If the knees are forward over the toes, it puts a lot of tension on the quads because the quads are doing this to try to protect the knee. If you shift the knee back over the ankle, it's a lot more work, but you're going to feel the hamstrings now working, the glutes working to stabilize, and the abdomen. If you're using the quads, what tends to happen is the back will work, right? So the opposing muscles, right? So if we can get into the hamstrings, we'll start to cultivate this lift in the abdomen. So start to take your hips way back towards the wall. So I'm really driving down through the heels here. The weight's in the heels. Thighs are pressing in towards each other. Good. Take the hips to the wall. Again, if you need to, right, you can take the hands to the wall, but you may want to set up with the chair a little closer to the wall to begin with. So you're pressing into the hands, right? Lifting through the belly and the ribs. Take the hips to the wall. Bring this a little closer. Good. Take a deep breath in. Press into the heels of the feet. Press into the hands. Arms are supporting the work of the legs, right? Over time, so I'm bringing the legs a little wider. Over time, you will start to bring the hands either to blocks. Good. A block. I'm going to do this just so you can see. Good. Or to the floor. And then the hands, you can see a little bit more, right? I'm pushing through the heels of the feet to get that lift in the belly. I'm pushing into the hands to get the retraction of the ribs and the hips moving into the wall. And the legs are working really hard. Thighs are rolling in, right? Arms are lifting. Abdomen is lifting. For now, you might be just here. And the work is in the action of the legs to direct energy into the abdomen, pressing into the arms to bring energy, right? The rib cage retracting to bring energy into the back body. And we'll take one more deep breath in here. Good. Exhale. To make it more challenging, you lower the hips until the thighs are parallel to the floor. Then we come up to an upright position. So keep driving through the legs. A lot of work in the legs here. Hands to your thighs. Do not use your back to come up. Drive down through the heels, get that lift in the belly, retract the ribs, and start to walk the hands back up the thighs, lean into the plane of your back. If you need to, go around through your heels, straighten out your legs. This is to release the work of the thighs, to release the work of the hamstrings. Good. Tailbone falling, navel drifting back. Soften through the knees. Again, you'll drop down lower. Good. To get more action in the abdomen, watch that lower back. And then I'm going to lift the arms up just so you can see, but the hands can just rest on your thighs otherwise. Take a deep breath in. Again, sacrum is on the wall. Drive down through the heels, belly, and then the rib cage back. So the whole back body's against the wall, and then you take 2 breaths. Inhale. So the breath is hyperdimensional. I'm holding the back against the wall. One more. Inhale, drive through the heels, straighten out the legs. Bend the knees, hinge at the hips. So I'm keep pushing the sacrum into the wall, hinging forward. Take the hands to the seat of the chair. You may take the hands here behind you to shift the weight forward. Do not use your back. I'm just shifting the weight forward so I can get the weight in the arms. And then here's where you may want to slide your chair back if possible. And then step or walk the feet back, taking your downward dog. So again, I'm on the ball of my foot here. Knees might be slightly bent. Pressing down into the seat of the chair. Don't push the chair away from you. It will slide out from underneath you. Push it down to uplift the arms. And then you take the groins and the hips back towards the wall. So the wall is there to support you. Then thighs pressing in, you might be able to stretch down through the heels of your feet and get extension in the legs as long as you're lifting through the belly. And then again, you're not sinking through the shoulders. Some of us have a facility to kind of sink through the shoulders and pull on that back. This is where the elbows are rolling in towards the face and uplifting, and the head can fall. So the weight of the head is going to bring some length into the spinal muscles, which exist or originate right between the shoulder blades and go all the way to the top of your cranium. So the idea is to work with the weight of the head here to support length in the neck, because you've got the abdomen and the front ribs lifting to support traction in the rest of your back. Take another deep breath in here. Exhale. Inhale, billow the back a little bit. As you take the heart forward with the gaze, shift your weight a little forward, soften your knees. And again, you might lower the knees towards the floor. This is where I might take 1 foot forward just very gently. So this is kind of nice because you can work with eventually into some unilateral poses where you get a little bit more traction through the outer thigh, that front leg, outer hip. But for now, I'm just going to have you lower the knee towards the floor. So we'll remove the obstacles along life's path, eventually. And then from here, gently take that front leg back. You can bring the toes together, good, heels together, and lower the hips back to your heels. Again, you might put some height under the hips. You might be fine just lowering the sits bones to your heels. Watch that lower back. And again, I'm just going to move the chair a little forward so I can rest the hands one on top of each other, forehead to the top, and you're not sinking, you're not letting go here. Again, there's that subtle lift in the belly, subtle retraction in the rib cage, subtle billowing of the back.